as we get into this draft?
I'm expecting a lot of prioritization. One, on the roamers. As we can see, Catherine, the first ban goes through. Catherine, Grace, Lyra still top 3 roamers, but there's a lot of prioritization on Lance too. Finn might show up. And other than that, for Mousesports, they're going to need to get Doom on a comfortable character so that he can shine the way he can.
Yeah, and you're talking about Finn there. That's something we've seen in Challengers this past week, was the fact that Finn was heavily prioritized by a lot of teams. So we'll see if that carries over into the pro play, but it looks like it will be a Lance first pick for the side of Mousesports. So again, Captain Focused is the name of the game right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that in the draft, that's historically been the case in the Vainglory as well. Captains are just so influential on the game.
And Lance is not only a good pick for Mousesports, but that takes it away from Fnatic. Netitoleta is one of the best Lances in Europe. It's something that everyone knows. So let's see what Fnatic goes for. It's Finn. We just mentioned him. Yep. He shows up. So far, a lot of prioritization on roamers, though. No carries. Vox still open. CP Idris is still open. A lot of things still on the table.
Yeah, we got to the 3rd ban, the 5th lock-in of the entire draft. It's finally something that's not a captain coming on through. Blackfeather taken off the board. Now, Mousesports, they have to decide what they want to deny from Fnatic here.
Yeah, and that's going to be a difficult choice because, again, there are so many strong picks still left. They take the Celeste away, so Scarf is still available. So is the Idris. I would expect Fnatic to maybe lean a bit more towards the Scarf pickup, just because that's one that both Palmatoro and TechnoJJ can play exceptionally well, and you don't necessarily want to be going with the Idris into a Lance.
I mean, Vox is also open. That's something we know TechnoJJ likes to play as well.
He likes to play him a lot, but Vox is perhaps not the strongest of laners right now in this update. One thing that's very interesting is that Kestrel is still open. We know Doom is such an incredible CP Kestrel jungler, although she's a little bit weaker this update, so I'm interested to see if they're going to go for it here or not.
Yeah, the Scarf will be locked in the end for Fnatic. That's something we've seen them play time and time again. Historically, it's been Palmatoro. Obviously, Scarf, it's kind of in flux where you play him on the map right now, so it's almost a flex pick to some extent as well. Now, Mousesports, they've got a double pick on their hands.
Yeah, I would like to see the Scarf in the jungle right now, just because, again, with the changes to the with the removal of Halcyon potions, it's very difficult to stay in the lane if you get poked at all as a Scarf. So you want to put him in the jungle where he can at least stick around and be the one that's making the more aggressive moves. Vox is going to come out here, though. I think this is part of it, though, because Vox is one of the heroes that can easily start.
I wonder if Fortress is going to come out here. This is a composition that I've seen a few European teams play, Vox, Lance, and Fortress. I wonder if that's what is going to be happening. But on the Fnatic side, while they have Scarf and Finn, these are very extremely strong characters late game. They don't have a lot of early game, and Vox and Lance are known for how hard they can push in the lane and apply a lot of pressure. Good thing for Fnatic, they have the junglers for last pick, so they can counter pick whatever Mousesports ends up picking here.
Yeah, I mean, they've already managed to get one counter pick in with the Finn versus Lance kind of situation. We'll see where Mounts are going to go for this final pick to round out their composition. I'm curious about the potential Fortress coming through there because, you know, typically Lance and Fortress have both been known as those captain roles. What is this composition? What do you expect to see coming out from this?
Jungle Fortress, most likely, just so you have that crystal power for coming through, because you're not going to be running a CP Vox generally at the current update, but the CP Fortress, you can apply so much pressure early on. This is actually very similar to what used to be the old school, like, super aggressive early game composition. Fortress just allows you to be so aggressive and provides can provide a little bit of lifesteal to your team as well. So, you know, you get that anywhere where you can buy a little bit of sustain, I think gives a team a really big edge.
If it is going to be a CP Fortress in the jungle, Mousesports going to be able to scale fairly easily just because we mentioned Fnatic doesn't have a strong early game. The Cruel, though, that's a character that can apply a lot of pressure early game, both going into the jungle dueling the Fortress easily, and when he hits his level 6, he can go up to lane, he can get a gank with his ultimate. I like Fnatic's draft. I like Mousesports' draft. I think it's going to come down to whoever plays it better. Mousesports have to scale, but Fnatic got a pretty good scaling comp too. It's going to be up to execution, really, in my opinion.
I have to ask about the Crow pick a little bit, just because typically, when you're going against a Cruel, you want mortal wounds, right? But they have a Vox and a Fortress. That's a lot of mortal wounds on this side of Mouse. Is that going to be an issue for this Cruel pick?
I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue because the Cruel pick is mostly just to shore up their early game, and then late game is just going to be the Finn and the Scarf that take over. So, once the mortal wounds really start to become an issue, that's when all of a sudden the Scarf becomes the main threat instead of the Krull, and the Krull is just there to apply those weakness stacks. So I think Fnatic has a really well-rounded draft, and that's what I really like about it, is the fact that they have the early game strength, and then they switch off who's going to be the focus in the late game.
All right, I have to ask Zoro, we've been talking about this early game pressure, we've been talking about control of the middle of the map being so important at the early stages of the game. Does either team have an advantage for those early skirmishes?
I would say so, but it's going to be a lot about applying the lane pressure to get jungle advantage with it. If Fortress is not going to be able to go into the jungle alone and duel Cruel, it's going to have to be through lane.
All right, we'll see if they can pull that one off. It's time to get into the first game of the autumn 2017 season. It's time to kick things off with a bang. It's Mousesports going up for Fnatic. Let's get into game number 1.
Thank you very much, Munchables. What an exciting matchup we have here today. Mouse versus Fnatic, the 2nd seed versus the 3rd seed of the Summer Live Championship. And joined today is one of our new talent, Source. Welcome to the Vainglory caster team.
Glad to be here and glad to be into our first game.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one here. Mouse bringing on Tricky, a player of ups and downs, but a lot of talent nonetheless. And I think one of the major criticisms of Mouse during the summer season was that Atfuls wasn't as dynamic as Mouse needed him to be. Let's see what they can pull off here as Netala in lane is going to be able to resist the Impale as he cannot be stopped, but does take a huge amount of damage. Palmatoro will come in just to love tap Mouse to say, hey, we see you there. We'll have to see how either of these teams can get early objectives, early advantages. For Fnatic, they've got a really good late game scaling composition, but Mouse, they've got this major skirmishing composition.
Yeah, and just starting things off, we had Mouse go with the triple jungle, Fnatic went with the double jungle. So you ended up with interesting early level 2 spike for Fnatic, where pretty much everybody was ready to fight, and they had 2 members at level 2. So we're already starting to see a little bit of how this jungle farm and all of the golden experience is going to play out in 2.8.
And that's the major thing here, is that we are playing on 2.8, the first of the competitive for North America and Europe here in the Vainglory 8. Have to see what rises, what falls. We've got a bit of a preview, I think, as to what the meta may be at the Unified Live Championships in Los Angeles earlier on this month. I feel like the meta may be fairly similar, but of course there are little things, little nuggets that I think are going to rise with the cracks.
Yeah, definitely the changes as to sustain, how that's going to affect some of the drafts, and how that's going to affect how team fights go once we start to get towards the middle portion of the game, fountains start coming out, and you see how much damage is actually going to stick to a given character. And, I mean, so far both teams playing fairly safe. Nobody wants to really overcommit because you just don't have potions anymore.
The healing flask taking on over. It does provide a lot of burst healing, but a very long cooldown. The major thing I think the healing flask offers that maybe some people overlook is actually the barrier that it gives the player when they pop it, allowing them to predict when they're about to take a bit of burst damage and then heal through the subsequent damage that comes through.
Yeah, and for the moment, I'm surprised that I'm the Doom. I don't know if that's a double weapon power composition yet. Might have just been picking up a little bit of weapon power for that early jungle capability to just get through some of those camps before switching over to maybe a little bit more of an on-hit or CP build. But for the moment, doesn't look like we're going to get an idea of what that build looks like for a little while. And just all this lane pressure is interesting because of how much value you get out of those jungle camps. I'm surprised that the teams are willing to put that many members towards the lane of the game.
Yeah, just looking for early ganks, it seems, for both these teams. Palmatoro just up in this lane. Top bush hasn't been spotted. Justman currently just trying to bait out, but it will be Palmatoro knocked back. I'm the Doom sitting on a huge amount of gold and the jungle shop about to spawn, so I suspect that I'm the Doom will make his way to purchase up very shortly, and we'll get an idea of that build that he's going towards. Almost certainly a CP build. I expect it's almost not in question. Another thing that's really interesting to talk about, and maybe people don't know, is that Mouse, they brought on Tricky here, which is a I would say, an upgrade for their carry position. But they've also brought on Physics, who's well known for her drafting capabilities for Cloud9. She's actually an official substitute, and if Just Man was to fall out, even I'm the Doom, she's prepared to step in as a jungle or captain substitute. So not only have they brought on, you know, fantastic drafting capability in Physics, but also a player that can substitute for those positions.
Yeah, and you know, a little bit more on Tricky. You put him on a Vox, it's going to be, you know, a reasonably mechanical character going up in the first game up against Fnatic. That's going to be a solid test of, you know, how well he handles, you know, just the pressure of the game, and then also going into the rest of the series. If this, you know, if he's under pressure during this match, if it doesn't go that well for Mouse, how well he's going to rally back. And that's, you know, that's going to be a new dynamic within the team as to how they communicate through that and how they work through any possible issues. Also, how they keep themselves from getting too overconfident, because often with new teams, you start feeling really, really good. You start making over-aggressive plays. You start doing, you know, more than you're capable of at the start, just because it's, you know, it's kind of that honeymoon phase.
Well, we do get a bit of a window into what Mouse are preparing for this game. Double tension bow purchased here by I'm the Doom, as well as Tricky. I'm the Doom now going to be working towards what looks like an aftershock, so going for an on-hit build here, where he just relies on the major amount of burst that he gets off that first auto attack.
Yeah, also, you know, Tricky going with that tension bow, so probably seeing, well, no, has picked up a little bit of crit. So maybe taking the early tension bow for some damage is going to work into the Tyrant's monocle, or
looks
maybe
like it might even be a tornado
speed.
trigger. Yeah, it's very interesting. 2.8 Vox. Especially after the Poison Shiv nerfs in 2.7. Vox's build has been up in question, people really wondering what's the best build, what's the most meta build, what's great for the damage output. So maybe something a little bit new, something unheard of here from Tricky. The Tension Bow definitely raising some question marks in my mind, but perhaps a little bit too early to really understand exactly. From what Mouse want to do, they want to rush on in and try and get on top of that Scarf, so perhaps they're just relying on heavy burst damage. Either way, here they come. Got the attacker pack popped. They can't really find an entrance. Net to let on this Finn provides a bit of an issue for Mouse diving deep onto the backline.
Yeah, I think I'm the Doom was hoping to be able to walk through that bush, then use attack of the pack, you know, and start looking for the opponents, use that, you know, that initial ultimate and try and make that kind of pick. And maybe that's why they went with the double tension bow, look for that mid-game fight and kind of spiral things out of control from there. But they don't really get that much, and that's a lot of pressure onto that first turret.
Yeah, no, the first turret taking significantly more damage as its health was reduced. It also had its gold reduced as well, now offers 200 per member. Fnatic doing their best to keep Just Man back, but he pops that healing blast so he can be involved in the fight a little bit longer, has the Fountain, which means the life spring is ticking away, giving him increased health regen. Currently, Mouse haven't been able to find an entrance onto Techno JJ, which means that they can't really pressure anything. If Nettolet and Palmatoro are spending time in the lane to keep this Scarf alive, then Techno JJ is getting increased gold and able to scale towards perhaps a 4, or indefinitely a 4 damage item build. He's going towards a chronograph next, and then we'll be finishing a broken myth afterwards.
Yeah, and I mean, already 2 items into that build. We're about 8 minutes into the game. There's basically been this, you know, heavy stalemate, and Tricky is going for a heavy crit build, so probably Tyrant's Monocle next, and I guess a 4 damage build going into, I hope, what'll be a Sorrow Blade later to kind of round out that damage and make those crits, you know, actually stick.
Could also be a breaking point because of Vox's fantastic attack speed. You can kind of substitute a Sorrow Blade if you get those stacks on the breaking points. So it'll be very interesting to see what Tricky does decide to do, but definitely a crit focused build. Huge pull. Oh, the stun afterwards. First blood. Gonna go over to Techno JJ, and that's the wombo combo Fnatic wanted.
Yeah, perfect force to chord, and that's gonna start to set the pace of things now that you know, Finn is kind of getting online, is able to make some of those plays. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more action, but fight under the tower. Techno JJ taking some damage.
Yeah, currently Mouse are doing their best just to try and clear the wave. If Techno JJ can light that goop, that's a lot of damage the turret's going to take, and Fnatic likely to try and take this turret just now. Turret goes down, but here comes their counter engage from Mouse. popping that fountain, and a lot of burst goes on to Palmatoro. That's the on-hit effect that I'm the Doom and Tricky can kind of supply with those double tension bow end as well. Oh, TechnoJJ finds a snipe onto Justman, and the Dragon's Breath is going to dissuade Mouse from sticking around. Very unfortunate for Mouse to lose their captain in such a way. It means they can't continue the aggression, and now going to be forced to just try and steal as many jungle camps and back away.
Yeah, Justman opened that up with a really great impale to set up that first kill, but a nice fadeaway Spitfire from Scarf is going to pick that one up. And for the moment, wait, is that a second tornado trigger? What is Tricky doing?
It is. Double tornado trigger, looking for a massive amount of attack speed, as well as having a bit of crit as well. A very intriguing build coming out of Tricky, something I've not seen before.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, who knows what you can do with a Vox in 2.8? Might as well try pretty much anything. And, you know, that much attack speed is going to allow for Tricky to really showcase mechanics to the highest degree.
Yeah, no, tension bow plus the double tornado trigger offers a huge amount of attack speed. So Tricky going to be able to output a lot as far as that is concerned. They're currently looking to take the gold mine away, but it does get stolen over, secured by Mouse. Netelet can't find the last hit, and that's a huge gold payout going over to Mouse. 400 now increased on update 2.8, and it puts him in the gold lead by 1,000.
Yeah, Netelet definitely like the attempt there, but not going to be easy to be able to steal that one away. And so for the moment, Fnatic has been looking for these major plays, and Mouse has been willing to kind of let them engage off of that. I feel like I'm the Doom just hasn't really been able to get those chase down moments, really find those open team fights that I think he wants. And I don't really think we've seen whether or not the burst combo is, you know, is really there for Mouse, which is kind of what it seemed like their builds were looking for.
So we're at this 11-minute mark. Mouse have got this interesting build on Tricky. We're seeing a on-hit effect build for I'm the Doom. Currently building towards some defensives as TechnoJJ is getting pretty close to hitting his 4th CP damage item and is going to be the main damage output for Fnatic. Hitting this point where I wonder kind of the win conditions of Mouse, what time their composition kind of loses out on power, if it's going to be able to continue to be threatening enough towards Fnatic at all stages of this game.
I'm already be a little bit worried because Palmatoro's picked up the poison chip. So, you know, with the reduced sustain in 2.8, you value of Immortal. Oh, that forced a chord.
Yeah, great block comes out. The Crucible as well. It's going to be a re-engage. TechnoJJ's rooted up, knocked away. Oh, Justman, can they find the kill? It's going to be Palmatoro falling now, looking for TechnoJJ, but Justman is going to lead the charge, looking for an impale. He hits and he scores. It's 2 for Mouse. Netelet under the turret knows he's dead and will give up the ace to Mouse. And now they can secure their first turret of the game.
Now that is what Mouse has been looking for, that fight on the run, that initial bit of burst onto a single target. And I mean, at this point, the moment that Justman actually locks anything down with an Impale or a Githian wall, I'm pretty sure that Tricky is just going to shred through whatever target that is. Yeah, and it's just like, that is kind of, I think, where Mouse has been looking to find these fights, and they've just never been able to get Fnatic to actually kind of run away from them, because when you're on the run up against, you know, Fortress, he's just going to be able to chase you down very, very easily. Tricky does a really good job of chasing on the Vox. Justman can kind of land those impales when people are on the run and not really cutting back and forth. It's really just a perfect team fight for Mouse, and maybe now they can kind of get the momentum.
It is going to be a heavy steal picked up for Tricky, which means he can either go towards a breaking point or that Sorrow Blade, like you mentioned. My money's on the breaking point. You've gone for the Sorrow Blade. I guess we're going to find out which caster is more dominant here, Source, in their game knowledge. A bit of banter between us, but currently
This is an unfair challenge.
I think it's fairly fair. You've made your choice, I've made mine, but it's working. That's the main thing. Is Tricky's unconventional build here is working.
Well, I don't think they've been able to really pressure Tricky, but Ingo Justman.
Yeah, are not able to find the steal. It is going to be Fnatic with the gold payout. Pops the wall treads, does Netelet, and they're all going to escape away. Mouse knowing that there's real no chase here. In 2.8, the Crystal Sentry being changed so that it offers a slow when it auto-attacks, makes things very difficult for a team to really dive on too deep. But Mouse just going to pressure the lane by pushing the lane in.
Yeah, so I figured that Palmatoro might be able to get some of that value in those duels. Has the Astra's Pauldron, so is looking to get on top of Tricky and really shut him down. But he hasn't really been able to get deep enough into the fight, and there have been too many reflex blocks onto pretty much all of the CC coming out of Fnatic. That really, once they use the From Hell's Heart and the Forced Accord, they're pretty much looking to have already gotten in on the fight. He's picked up the Poison Shift. He wants to stand there and fight and get through all of that sustain, make it so that Tricky isn't going to be healed up and all the damage is going to stick. But until they actually get, I want to say, a really good flank or manage to kind of stutter out the From Hell's Heart and Forced Accord, I don't think they're going to actually be able to land that heavy engagement.
And the real good thing for Tricky here is Netelet gets engaged upon, slowed down by the Impale. He's going to continue chasing on forward, a huge 3-man quibble, but he's just straight up dead. That's an easy kill for Mouse. One of the huge things that this build offers for Tricky is that there's very little defense. TechnoJJ's gone towards a 4 CP damage item build. Now he's building armor, but he's not going to have a reflex block, which means that he's vulnerable to Justman's Impales, vulnerable to the Giffian Wars, and that's just huge for Mouse, that they've kind of pigeonholed TechnoJJ's ability to avoid the CC by forcing him into armor with this double Tornado Trigger build. It is a breaking point picked up. Tricky looking to try and stack on up. One of those things is that you can get the Sorrow Blade and you have immediate effect, or you get a breaking point. If you can stack it up, the breaking point, then it's more effective than a Sorrow Blade once it gets to the higher stacks.
Yeah, and at this point, they've been able to kind of put that pressure on to Netelet, and it's a Finn, easy target to be able to put some breaking point stacks onto. And TechnoJJ hasn't been able to set up and kind of, not exactly siege, but really get the poke value out of Scarf. Hasn't been able to play in that kind of nice mid-range where Scarf really excels, just a little bit out, almost that long range, but is able to just get down lots and lots of Spitfires. So from the moment, unfortunate Crystal Sentry, and that was a great crucible.
Yeah, fantastic by Justman. Able to block them all up. There is no echo on Netelet, so that forced Accord on a pretty hefty cooldown. Kraken able to break open the base here. Now, Mouse going to actually just fall back. Too risky to fight for the second turret. Tackler Pack may just put enough threat towards Fnatic, but seemingly they're going to just look to focus down the Kraken instead and steal away the backs here for Mouse.
Yeah, and it's also a double Crucible out from Mouse, so they're really ready to just shut down. I don't actually think Force Accord is going to land unless Netelet isn't going for an Echo. So maybe if there was an Echo in there, they could bait through one from Hell's Heart, get out another Force Accord, and maybe make something happen there. But for the moment, it just kind of feels like Fnatic has been stalled out. They're looking for the plays, but nothing's really connecting.
So because of this high damage build that Tricky has, once he gets stacked up on the breaking point, and the double Tornado Trigger with a crit should be able to allow him to stack up quite quickly. I'm the Doom has decided he doesn't need much damage, has opted in for a null wave gauntlet, which means that he can try to silence Netelet and prevent him from using one of his 4 activatable items. So a very intriguing build here for I'm the Doom, who's really just looking for that on-hit first auto attack onto TechnoJJ so he can output damage, and then kind of falling into a bit more of a supportive jungler role.
Yeah, and that no wave gauntlet is going to start to affect how these team fights go, long term. If you're actually taking the fountain out of play, if that's just not going off in the middle of the team fight, there goes pretty much all of Scarf's sustain. Hasn't even harvest for sure, but that needs to happen over the course of long over the course of a fight. Mouse is not allowing for fights to go more than 4 or 5 seconds before somebody goes down.
And the other thing for Mouse is they just focus Netelet down before he even gets the chance to fountain himself. So there's a lot of things that Mouse can really be looking to do. Another Crucible blocks up the Forced Accord. They can stack up if they want on towards Netelet and then turn towards the more squishier TechnoJJ. Get those breaking point stacks right up. Mouse right now controlling the pace of this game. Just have to see if they can continue to do so. It's going to be a jump on towards Netelet. Does the Null Wave come out? No, it hasn't quite yet. It is going to be Fnatic backing away, but the Dragon's Breath comes out. Huge Giffian Wall stops it up, but it is Tricky currently knocked on up, stunned up, trying to escape. Fountain heals him, and it's already going wrong for Mouse. They've lost their captain. Justman is dead. Tricky now looking to try and escape. TechnoJJ dodges out the Spitfire, dodges out the group. He's going to turn on to TechnoJJ, but I think he's just straight up dead. He is. And that means that only I'm the Doom is left. The Kraken is sitting there for Fnatic to take, and this is going to be a turning point of the game.
Yeah, and they finally managed to get the fight to stop for just 5 seconds, or, for a moment or so. The fight kind of slowed down, and Tetelet was able to get out all that 4 to 5 health off of the Polite Company. And just, I think from there, the fact that Palmatoro or Tetelet didn't get bursted, the fact that the wait for it was already on cooldown from the previous, kind of poke war, I think that kind of allowed Palmatoro to really get in there and actually survive through the team fight and output the damage that a Kroll can.
Well, a bit of a turning point indeed. This 19.5-minute mark. Fnatic now looking to push on in with the Kraken. Have to see how Mouse can turn the tides. Their Fountain just waiting to be off cooldown. Double Fountain, in fact, I'm the Doom has one as well. And a Crucible. He has gone a double support setup here for Mouse. Very uncharacteristic of I'm the Doom, but perhaps if they can just keep Tricky alive, they feel it's worthwhile. This Kraken, down to half HP, the first turret it's encountered will fall and will explode, doing a bit of damage to the Kraken as well. Fnatic going to look to continue to push in, but wary that this composition from Mouse can just engage at the flick of a switch. So going to be very careful about how they do proceed. 3 broken myth stacks on Techno JJ, not really enough for Fnatic to force a fight. The forced accord not up for another 14 seconds either, meaning that Fnatic can't really pull the switch either. And that's just going to be the Kraken taken on down, only 1 turret secured, so a net gold lead over towards Mouse.
Yeah, everything from Mouse's composition is showing more and more how much faith we're putting in Tricky and this build, because Justman has gone into an Echo on a Lance, which isn't, insane, but it's not very slot efficient. It's really going to be there for the double Githian wall for that second impale as a follow-up. Everything is there to set things up so that Tricky has all the space to maneuver and pick off targets, and maybe that double Githian wall to try and, knock Cruel back, and then he goes in again and knock Cruel back again after, Dead Man's Rush. Like, all of those mechanics are there to just keep Tricky alive and let Tricky shine.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to see how it does play out. Echo becoming a major part of a lot of captains' builds. Tetelet would want one of himself, but he can't afford it instead. Looking like he's going towards a null wave of his own to try and silence up maybe I'm the Doom or a Just Man. Mouse able to force the recalls out of Fnatic, but not all of them have been completed just yet. It is Techno JJ last to the base. Fnatic now going to meet Mouse. Forced accord blocked up. Just Man going to avoid being pulled into an oblivion of the Fnatic team. It looks like they should just be able to take down this Crystal Sentry before Fnatic can even get there. Yeah, it is going to fall. Eliminated at the 22-minute mark here. Mouse just taking away everything they can, waiting for this Kraken to respawn.
I really like that out of Mouse. They pull all of Fnatic back, and actually, for a moment, it looked like Fnatic thought it was a bait, that they were just going to push the wave and wouldn't actually consider stepping into their base, and that kind of forced Fnatic to delay the recalls a little bit, but it really just moves Fnatic around the board. It keeps things, in the hands of Mouse, plays things at their pace, and here we go.
Ooh, another engage. Techno JJ's in a bad spot. Stunned up Silence. He's in so much trouble, but a huge stun onto Tricky. May just be able to turn the fight. Looks like Techno JJ may go down. Yes, it does, but can Tricky get away from Palmatoro? Looks like he will be able to. Tricky will be able to finish off the kill, and it's 2 to Mouse, but the 2 most crucial members of the team. The damage outputs, it's only Tetelet to defend the base. A huge gold lead, 8,000 for Mouse at this 23-minute mark, and they're going to look to push on in, take down these turrets, and with Tricky's crit build, they should be able to take them down fairly quickly as well. No minion wave, Tetelet's preventing it from crashing into the turrets, but Justman will tank it on up, and Tricky should be able to finish the job off. 18 seconds on Techno JJ, and it just seems like an eternity for Mouse as the Vein Crystal turrets fall. The Vein Crystal falls as well, and Mouse will take the first game of the Vainglory 8 autumn season.
A great final team fight out of Mouse. You saw 8 activated items on cooldown for Justman and I Am the Doom, using everything to keep Tricky alive, and Tricky just performed.
And that is the name of the game for Tricky. Will he be able to perform? Araki Zoro says that he's going to perform online, and that's going to be Mouse's secret weapon. It's the old team secret roster that we saw from London's Vainglory 8 performing here in autumn. Very exciting for sure. Let's see what the desk